mentioned, it's the 12th anniversary of the Star Wars Underworld on Sunday, April 10th. So this is the last show before we hit the big 1-2.
This is our last show ever, guys. 12 years, got a good run. Let's go. Let's close it up shop.
Yeah. But what I thought would be interesting, I thought would be fun, would be to take a trip down memory lane and go through what the top Star Wars news story was on April 10th of every year for the last 12 years.
It's like that way. It's like that memories thing on Facebook where it's like what
exactly
you posted every year ago. Yeah,
exactly. So
some of them are good. Some of them are not so good.
I've gone back and looked through some of the things that have been going on or around April 10th for each of the years that Star Wars Underworld has been around. So we'll start in 2010, aka the year Ben decided, hey, I should click that create Facebook page button. I should do something new and exciting. And the top story on April 10th, and this for some of these older years, I had to rely on the Force.net archives, which are very extensive. It's terrific over there. But April 10th, 2010, the top story. This is the headline: Variety examines new Star Wars animated series. Whoa! And this is a Variety story giving some more details about a Star Wars show that was announced 5 days earlier on April 5th, 2010. And you might be wondering what show that is. Is that something we ever saw? It's not. We're, of course, talking about Star Wars Daytonas! This makes sense. So this is what they had to say. This is sort of the in-depth report that they had. This was point form on the Force.net because I don't think the original Variety article exists anymore. The show, which didn't have a name at the time, was an animated Star Wars sitcom, not sketch comedy. Matt Stenreich described the series as a character-driven story comedy that may include crossover appearances from Star Wars movie characters. No crossovers from the Clone Wars are planned at this point. The show will be no more than half an hour long. While Brendan Hay from The Daily Show has been tapped as the head writer, Lucasfilm is looking to hire up to 10 more writers. Animation will be done overseas, but not sure where yet, and possibly not in Singapore, which is where they did a lot of Clone Wars stuff. And for the doubters, Seth Green said, let us assure you, this isn't going to suck as much as you think it is. Star Wars Detours. That was the big thing that was going on back in 2010. The same day, Ben, that you were thinking was this what inspired you? Was this what inspired you to create this new Star Wars fan community? Was you're like, this animated comedy's coming out. I gotta be ready for it.
I don't remember thinking about Detours. For me, Detours feels like it came way later than that. I was so focused on Clone Wars. I think the first ever thing that I ever posted on our Facebook page, which was where the Underworld started, was an interview with Daniel Logan talking about Boba Fett coming back in the Clone Wars, which was the hot thing at that point. I think it was like Clone Wars was airing and like the Death Trap and those episodes were airing.
Ben, funny you should mention that because the other top story.
Oh boy.
On April 10th, 2010. I
jumped the gun on this.
No, it's a perfect lead-in because the other top story was that there was a new teaser for Boba's first appearance in the Clone Wars. And this is it for everybody who's watching live. You can see what it looks like. There's no sound because otherwise we'd get copyright striked. But it's Boba Fett as he appears on the Clone Wars, walking in with his father's helmet. Wow. And it says like father, like son, 4/23/10.
Wow,
it was just around the corner.
Big deal. Like that season. What was it? Season 2 finale.
Yeah.
Boba Fett, Bosk, all those, that was a huge deal. Back before we were accepted of the fact that Star Wars movies were never happening again. Clone Wars was the biggest thing, and this was a huge deal. And part of the reason the Clone Wars exists because, it was what got me back into Star Wars. Not that I ever really left it, but my fandom after Revenge of the Sith was like, Star Wars is over, whatever. And they're like, Clone Wars is amazing. I could talk about this all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was what we would have been podcasting about had the podcast existed before you created the Star Wars Underworld. I don't know, but that's what the top story would have been. We would have been trying to make sense of the Star Wars detours age and the premiere of Boba Fett on the Clone Wars 2010. That's April 2010. Let's go April 2011. The top story on April 10th, 2011. Shockingly, this is kind of relevant again because it is Lego Star Wars 3, The Clone Wars. A new preview was released.
Nice.
And it was, if you're watching live, you can see it. And it was actually stop motion.
I was about to say this is stop. This is like, animation.
This looks like fan made.
Yeah. This is stop motion, but this was official. It had the rated E for everyone at the beginning and everything. But this was weird because this is again sort of a product of its time because this like little mini trailer was released after the game came out. The game itself was released in March, at the end of March, and this little mini preview was coming out almost 3 weeks later. Just pretty wild. The other big thing that was going on around that time was people getting ready for the release or for the opening of Star Tours 2. Star Tours 2, that was the big thing that was happening.
Continues.
Yeah, and Anthony Daniels was being interviewed by the LA Times about it. That would have been probably our second top story, if not our top story that week. And he's out here, he's talking about 3PO being the pilot, and he's giving little teasers about what's going on with the ride. And he's telling everybody, make sure you watch the screens before you actually get on the ride. And check it all out. So
I do remember that one, and I remember being mad that I couldn't get on the ride before they changed it because I never got to see the original version of it.
I got to ride it once, right before they changed it, or it may have been a little while, but like by the time I got back,
and I remember it was
the original Star Tours.
Wasn't it at like a Star Wars Celebration or something where they did the last ride?
Yeah. So that was Celebration 5. That was my first celebration. I wanted to go to that event. But I made my whole family go to that celebration. That was the only way I could go. And we as a family had been to Disney World 2 years earlier. And so I said to my parents, because I was 15, 16 at the time, I'm like, oh, we should go to this. And they're like, but we've already been to Disney World. Why do we need to go again? And I was like, no, but it's an event. And they're like, no, we've already done that. So I didn't get to go to that event, but that was the last tour to Endor.
Yeah.
I rode the original Star Tours like 2 years previous during that trip that prevented me from going to the last tour to Endor. All right, let's go. 2012, top story of 2012 on April 10th. The Star Wars Weekends guests have been announced. These are the every weekend they had a little mini convention down there at Disney World in Florida, a little mini Star Wars celebration, and the event was hosted by James Arnold Taylor and Ashley Eckstein, and there was a whole big long guest list that included, among other people, Ray Park, D. Bradley Baker, Tom Kane, Jake Lloyd, Daniel Logan, and Nika Futterman. Wow, it would have been a good time. Would have been a good time going down to those events. The other thing that was huge that week, exactly 7 days prior, a classic, legendary, beloved moment in Star Wars fandom took place with the release of Kinect Star Wars for the Xbox 360.
Yes.
Classic.
I believe the podcast did exist at that time and featured lively debates over whether or not the dancing mode was ruining Star Wars.
Look, Star Wars fandom has had some really dumb moments over the years. I think the reaction to connect Star Wars may have been one of the dumbest ever.
Yeah.
Like I'm just still disappointed I didn't get to play it because it looked
was
amazing to me.
Well, yeah. So we fast forward to 2013. We go from 2012 to 2013. A lot happened in between there. A lot happened in between there. We got the Disney sale. We got the announcement of 7, 8, 9. The Clone Wars was canceled. Detours was canceled before an episode was ever aired. Joel with the super chat saying 2008 to 2012 did feel like kind of a winding down period. I agree. I got the same vibe from it. It felt like things were kind of cooling down, and maybe it was because we were going to put the whole thing to bed. Little did we know they were cooling down so they could ramp back up again in a big way in 2012 with that announcement. But on April 10th, 2013, the big news, following all of that stuff of the announcement of episode 7, all of the the cancellation of the Clone Wars, the Disney sale, the big news, the top story on April 10th, 2013. The Yoda Chronicles release date announced.
Oh, wow.
Not what you're expecting. The first of the 3 Yoda Chronicles TV specials was announced to be airing on May 29th, 2013 at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So that would have been the top story. Also, what we would have been talking about that week on the show would have been the fact that Dave Filoni said he was working on a new animated series. Because remember, Clone Wars had been canceled. Rebels had not been announced. There was this moment where it seemed like we might not get more Star Wars from Dave Filoni. He might just go off and do other things. And I wonder if there was a moment where Dave considered doing that. Of course, he stuck around and did Rebels, got Resistance off the ground, did another season of Clone Wars, moved to live action, and is somehow like second in command when it comes to live action Star Wars television. So, things worked out pretty well for him. But he did a podcast interview that week where he said, at this point, he says at this point, I'm involved in some early production discussions and explorations of what we will be doing with Star Wars animation in the future, which is really exciting for me. And I have some friendly faces around me, of course, and that are helping me on the project. So it's transition time. As I've said before, I think it will lead to an exciting time, and hopefully things will grow again. So that's what Dave Filoni was saying in 2013.
He was probably sketching a TIE fighter at that point.
Yeah. Getting things ready. So that was 2013. 2014. So to give a little context, filming on The Force Awakens began in April 2014. The cast was announced at the end of the month, and filming began around that same time. So naturally, the top story on April 10th, 2014 was concept art from canceled Darth Maul video game released.
What?
Whoa. And I pulled this from the article I wrote on StarWarsUnderworld.com about it. It says the one non-episode 7 related Star Wars news stories that has dominated the headlines for the last few days is back. Earlier this week, Game Informer magazine revealed that the studio Red Fly had been working on a video game that would have been the origin story of Darth Maul. The game was ultimately canceled in 2011. Now Game Informer has released some concept art from the canceled game. So again, for everybody who's looking on the live stream, we got some of that concept art there.
No.
Would have had Darth Talon. Would have pulled in the Death
good.
Watch. Savage Opress is in there.
Mando's down there.
Yeah, would have had a Death Watch Lieutenant. This is pre-Bo-Katan. Got some more Darth Maul concept art there, looking pretty badass. So a little look at what might have been. But the other thing, of course, we would have been talking about is an interview that Disney chairman Alan Horn gave. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. I don't know if I have this video. I thought I had this video, but I don't know if I have it. But Alan Horn gave an interview where he talked about the fact that they were almost done casting episode 7 and that they'd actually begun shooting some stuff for it. I think we would later find out that was like second unit stuff out there in Abu Dhabi. And, also just to give you a sense of how busy things were and how crazy things were and what the vibe was. Other things that were going on that week was we had a rumor that Peter Mayhew was coming back for episode 7, which turned out to be true. We had a rumor that Maisie Richardson Sellers was going to be the front runner in episode 7, or was the front runner for an episode 7 role, for like a big role in the movie. Sort of wound up being kind of true, because she did wind up being in the movie, but she's in a blink and you miss it role. Most of her stuff wound up on the cutting room floor. And Tatooine, and then this was the other rumor of that week, Tatooine would be recreated in Morocco for episode 7. I think none of that sentence wound up being correct. I don't think they filmed anything in Morocco, and we now know it wasn't Tatooine, it was Jakku.
2014 is when we started with all those crazy rumors about episode 7.
Yeah,
all those location rumors. Yeah, they were.
It's funny. So there were so many episode 7 rumors that were true, but there were also so many that weren't true. It's like it's bonkers going back and looking at them.
I remember being in the Force Awakens panel, and maybe we had heard Abu Dhabi at that point. I'm sure we did.
I think we'd seen some set pics at that point,
like just leaked ones. J.J. Abrams uttering the word Jakku, and I was like, What did he say?
Yeah.
No, it's Tatooine, right? What's he doing to us?
He even said, he was like, oh, by the way, people think it's Tatooine. It's not. It's this other place. All right, going from 2014 to 2015. So this is just before the first celebration, Anaheim. Just before. And actually, the top story on April 10th, 2015 is something that Star Wars Underworld was actually kind of involved in. It was a co-report between Star Wars Underworld and that hashtag show, releasing an artist's depiction of a moment from The Force Awakens, and it's this moment here of Hux and Phasma looking up what's going on with Finn. Finn's while he's on the run.
Pretty good artist rendition, I have to say.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. And what would have been the second story of the week is another Star Wars Underworld, that hashtag show collaboration for another artist depiction of a moment from The Force Awakens. And it's this one. It's Han, Rey, and Finn in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon arriving on, whatchamacallit, that place where Maz Kanata's castle. Takodana. Yeah, although we didn't know it at the time. That's where they were going. Oh, look at that. Look at that. And to go along with that report, that hashtag show also released a report of what would be in the celebration trailer, which I've got here, which is kind of interesting, what's right and what's wrong about it. So here's the rumored trailer breakdown. The opening sequence begins on a desert landscape. A dusty Star Destroyer crashed into the sand. It looks like it's been there for many years. Tick. That's correct. Mm-hmm. Following a cut, characters Rey and Finn and our favorite rolling robot BB-8 are making their way through a crowd in the flea market of a very Tatooine-ish scenario. I mean, no Jakku, but tick. That's pretty close. Next, we have Rey looking up through the trees in a Yavin-like scenario as TIE fighters fly overhead. Again, tick, although it wasn't Yavin. I love this about Star Wars reports, is we always have to compare it to another Star Wars thing, even though it's probably a new thing, especially with The Force Awakens. The next scene we're told about, we are X-Wing pilots running to their ships in their old school X-Wing gear. Orange. Yeah, orange. Tick. Now it starts to get interesting. Towards the end of the trailer, from behind, we will see Han Solo, vest and all, complete traditional garb, the way we remember him, and he sits down and reacquaints himself with the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon.
That's not even
close.
In the movie.
It's.
He went to the cockpit and kind of looks around lovingly, but
I think
sitting down. Scene.
I think So I think that's probably some stuff that was thought about, because it sounds like it might have been shot for that same moment you're talking about, Ben. But Didn't wind up being in the trailer. But then there's this. As if this wasn't good enough, brace yourself, because the last scene has not been described by any other website yet. As of yet, as far as we know, this is an exclusive. The last scene shows a gloved hand pulling something out of a pile of ash. Here it comes into the clear. It begins to take form. Vader's helmet. What's left of it? Here's the interesting part. Remains of a skull still reside inside the helmet.
Oh,
wow.
Whoa.
Well, the Vader helmet is in the trailer, so I suppose you could kind of give a half a mark for that. But oof.
They changed a lot.
Yeah, they changed a lot.
Deleted scene. Come
But
on.
They changed a lot, but they kept a fair bit in there too. So kind of give it a C grade in terms of accuracy. Get a lot of things right, but some of the big moments kind of wrong. So that's 2015. 2016, our first show, our first anniversary post Force Awakens. What's going on? What's the top story? Well, it's Mark Hamill's Twitter account, because he tweeted this glorious picture from the set of The Last Jedi. It's Daisy Ridley carrying him around on his back in the back lot at Pinewood Studios. By the way, April 10th, not just the Star Wars Underworld's anniversary, also Daisy Ridley's birthday. Happy birthday, Daisy. And there it is, Mark Hamill, recreating a classic Luke and Yoda kind of moment, just with Rey filling in for Yoda and Luke being 30 some odd years older. Still one of my favorite behind the scenes images of all time.
Amazing.
Back when people actually could take photos from the set and post them on social media.
Well, they're in the parking lot. There's nothing in this that's spoilery. We knew Mark was in the movie and we knew Daisy was in the movie. So yeah, there's nothing spoilery. Why they should do this more often. Jon Favreau.
More parking lot pictures, please.
More parking lot pictures. Yes, exactly. Exactly. But the thing that would have dominated the news that week, though, in April 2016, was the first Rogue One teaser trailer. The one that's where most of it's not in the movie. I Rebel and all that didn't make the movie. Again, we'll go ahead another year, April 2017. The top story: Mark Hamill and Daisy Ridley to appear on Good Morning America with quote unquote big announcement.
Oh, they remember that.
And
was there a big announcement? I'm curious.
The big announcement was a new Force for Change campaign where you could make a donation to Force for Change. I think they were raising money for UNICEF at the time. And you'd be entered into a draw to win one of three prizes, one being a trip to Skywalker Ranch, one being a visit to the set of Solo, a Star Wars Story, and one being a trip to the premiere of Episode 8.
That is a big announcement.
It's a big announcement. Big announcement. The other thing we would have been talking about that week, a little bit sadder, but kind of still a little hopeful. Carrie Fisher's brother says Leia will be in Episode 9, because of course one of the things that happened at the end of 2016 was the fact that we lost Carrie Fisher, and Todd Fisher was interviewed at an event, and he said that Lucasfilm came to him and Billy Lord and asked if they could include Leia and her likeness in the final episode. And he said, quote, both of us were like, yes, how do you take her out of it? And the answer is you don't. She is as much a part of it as anything. And I think her presence is even more powerful than it was. Like Obi-Wan, when the saber cuts him down and he becomes more powerful. I feel like that's what's happened with Carrie. I think her legacy should continue. And as we know, it did.
Yeah.
Leia was still in Episode 9 using unshot or cut footage from The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
I guess they knew what they were going to do at that point. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, they were talking about what they were going to do, whether or not it was actually in there. Well, whether or not they had the actual plan at that point, I suspect they didn't, because I don't think Colin Trevorrow had yet been fired at that point in time. April 2018, we're getting a little closer to getting a little more caught up. Big story, top story on the day of. That picture right there. Han and Chewie on the set of Solo, a Star Wars Story, walking along what we now know to be Severine. Nice
and
little
at least
picture.
One person, if not 1,000 people, went, it's Tatooine!
Yep. So that was the big thing. Also, that week was actually the trailer for Solo, a Star Wars story. That one came out, the one that features Han saying, I have a really good feeling about this. That came out on April 8th. And also in the news that week was some leaked footage of what would become Smuggler's Run at Galaxy's Edge. Made its way online. And we've got it playing here on the screen if you're watching along. And for those of you that have ridden the ride, you can see where a lot of this sort of winds up being kind of part of the ride. Mm-hmm. There's the train, but then there's a lot of stuff that isn't in the ride, like this domino set of AT-ATs.
This has more Star Tours vibes to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I wonder if maybe some of that footage, I still think there should be more levels for Smuggler's Run.
I'm shocked that they haven't done an update to that after this many years. I'm absolutely shocked.
Well, and again, just looking at this footage, like there was stuff that they worked on that was very different from, or that is at least somewhat different from what wound up being in the actual ride.
We haven't even gotten up because, like, for a while there, they were updating Star Tours. We haven't even gotten a new update about that either. In a while.
Yeah, last Star Tours update, I believe, was for episode 9. 2019. April 10th was actually the first day of Star Wars Celebration. So there was no news. That was the news, was day one of Celebration. And you can go back and listen to the first of our daily podcasts from Celebration 2019 to hear what we were talking about that day, which was mainly show floor looks good. Happy with it. Having fun. But also the other thing that was going on that time was J.J. Abrams was talking about coming back to Star Wars for Episode 9, because that was another sort of big thing that happened in the interim there. It was J.J. was brought back to round out the trilogy, and he told Fast Company, I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't the guy, I was working on some other things, and I had something else that I was assuming would be the next project if we'd be so lucky. And then Kathy Kennedy called and said, would you really seriously consider coming aboard? And once that started, it all happened pretty quickly. The whole thing was a crazy leap of faith. And it's up to you to decide whether or not he succeeded on that. I like JJ. I still got a lot of time and a lot of respect for JJ.
Oh yeah, same.
Yeah,
even if episode 9's not my favorite thing. 2020. We're almost to the end of this ridiculous exercise. 2020. We're in the early months of COVID at this point. Everything's locked down. So there were two big Star Wars things that happened on April 10th. One being the release of the Clone Wars episode Dangerous Debt on Disney Plus. Where I think that's the conclusion, or I don't know if it's the conclusion, but it's one of the Trace and Rafa episodes. Fun episode. But, this was also at the time when, there were a lot of like celebrity projects encouraging people to stay home. And I think this was just before the whole Imagine thing happened. Yeah. Star Wars kind of got in on this, and they had some of the cast members read some storybooks, some kids' books. And Daisy Ridley got in on the fun, and she read a little bit of BB-8 on the run, or she read the whole book, and they posted it on YouTube, and you can still watch the whole thing. But here's a little taste of that.
My name is Daisy Ridley, and this is story time. I have chosen to read BB-8 on the Run, written by Drew Daywalt and illustrated by Matt Myers. Please sit back and relax for probably 10 minutes it'll take to read this. BB-8 wasn't used to being on his own, and it was scary, very scary. His friend Poe had told him to run. Get as far away from here as you can, the pilot had said. I'll come back for you. But BB-8 had seen the explosion back in Twarnell village, and he feared Poe was gone. Now it was all up to him to get the top secret map to the Resistance so they could find Luke Skywalker. All up to him. That was scary too.
We need to get Daisy reading some Star Wars audiobooks.
I'm telling you, that would be amazing.
Yeah. That would be fun. Next time a Rey novel comes out, or if they ever write a Rey novel, because I don't think one's come out
That
yet.
would be great.
Get her to read it. And then that brings us to last year, 2021. There wasn't a big story on April 10th, but on April 8th, we had one of the breaking news stories of all time. Ewan McGregor has a beard. There he is at a motorcycle shop in California, and it was a big deal because he had his beard. I think they were just about to start filming Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we looked at that picture and we said, "Yeah, he looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's bleeping Obi-Wan Kenobi right there." But the day after, the day after our 11th anniversary, there was a story that broke, and I feel like we have to touch on that real quick because it brings us full circle. And that is a rumor report from the Vulcan Reporter. No, it's not a Star Trek story. Star Wars, they tell us! Animated series finally set to release on Disney Plus after 9-year purgatory.
Oh, come on, that's not fair. That's another tease. I forgot about that.
Of course, that rumor turned out to be bunk. But yeah, look at that. 12 years later, all across the 12 years, we're still talking about when the hell is Star Wars Detours going to be released.
It's never going to go away. We're going to be, it's been 20 years since Star Wars Detours was supposed to be released.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it will be out. Yeah. For the 20th anniversary, we'll still be talking about Detours. Maybe it'll come out. Maybe for our 20th anniversary, we could convince them to give us an episode and we could watch it and review it.
What if we get to the end of that panel? We get to the end of that dang panel, the first panel of Star Wars Celebration, and then Kathleen Kennedy gets up on stage like, "Oh yes, the moment you've all been waiting for. You're going to see the first episode of Star Wars Detours. No, not Obi-Wan Kenobi."
I would lose my mind. I don't know about the rest of you. I'd be very excited.
No, I just wanted to say that, 12 years has been super amazing. And I've said it before on other anniversary shows for the podcast and for stuff, but obviously, being part of the Star Wars Underworld is one of the cornerstone things in my life, one of the most important things to me, and has opened me up to probably the most amount of experiences, more than anything else. So yeah, I'm super grateful to you guys, and I'm super grateful to all of our listeners and audience for being a part of that. It's absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll echo that. This has been, just the best, the best 12 years, covering every ridiculous Star Wars story that we just went through and so much more. That's been a lot of fun, but the real fun has been the people, whether it's been the two of you or any of the other people we've collaborated with, and especially the people that have listened, whether you're still listening after I guess 10, 11 years in there, or you just started last week. And we look forward to seeing as many of you at Celebration as possible, because that's always a good time. That's always the moment where all of this, which can feel very separate and very isolated at times, that's the moment where it feels real. And coming out of all of this, where we haven't had a celebration for 3 years, I think it's going to feel especially fulfilling for everybody who's there, and for everybody who can't come. Well, hopefully we'll see you at the next one or some other event. I've for years I've been saying we need to take the show on the road, and we need to do the Star Wars Underworld World Tour, and
thank you,
so that we can go everywhere and check in with everybody
in person.
Yeah. Check in with everybody who's ever listened to the show. It'll be a good time. But yeah, just the best time. Just the best time. A decade plus 2.
So good.
Ben, as the founder, I think you have to give the final thoughts on 12 years.
Yeah, I've got 12 years worth of thoughts. It's hard to put it into words. I will just say thank you, everyone, whether somehow, I'm assuming some of you may have been around since day one. I know at least a few of you. You may not be watching tonight or listening, but it's been a wild ride, and we've got it's hard to 12 years is kind of like. It's hard to fathom. It was like, 5th anniversary, 6th anniversary, 12th anniversary. Well, how did this happen? It sneaks up on you.
Who let this happen?
Yeah, exactly. So
somebody should have stopped us by now.
But the fact that we're still doing this after all these years, and there's people watching this now, not just listening, it just blows my mind. So as always, thank you so much, guys, for supporting us, watching, listening, commenting, all the stuff that you guys do. You are amazing. You make this happen.